How's it going, everybody? Eric here from That's Wrestling. Thanks for hanging out with me this evening, or if you are on podcast, either way. If you are watching this on YouTube, this is available as a podcast. You can head over to that'swrestling.com or search for it in all your favorite podcast apps or providers or whatever you want. If you can't find it in your particular podcast app, shoot me an email so I can get it attached to or submitted to that particular application, eric@that'swrestling.com. If you are listening to this as a podcast, head over to YouTube and subscribe to That's Wrestling, because I do these shows live on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell so you are alerted when I go live, so you can come hang out in the chat or anything like that and ask questions or be part of the conversation. Also, I am looking for co-hosts for this show, so if you're interested in being a co-host, either for AEW, New Japan, one or the other, or both, and my tea is going off. Sorry about that. Shoot me an email, eric@that'swrestling.com. If you just want to be a fill-in when I don't have anybody to be a co-host, that's cool too. Again, it can be for AEW, New Japan, or both. Either way. And I think that is it for any major announcements. So let's get to it. Tonight we are talking about WrestleKingdom 14, night number 2. So there are 2 nights this year for WrestleKingdom. Both of them ran about 5+ hours. So I'm not sure if they really need to do this again. I think really the biggest thing was them doing the dual championship, or whatever you want to call it. It's not really unification, but because they're going to split it up. So whatever. I think that's kind of the biggest thing. I don't think they need to do two events every year. And yeah, 10 hours is a lot of wrestling, even though it was New Japan. It's not like it felt like a slog to get through it or anything. So that wasn't like a huge deal. But, 10 hours of wrestling over the course of 2 days, it's just a lot of wrestling. And keeping up is a bit of a pain when you got other stuff to do. So really the only prelim was actually the 6-man tag titles was relegated to the pre-show. That, I guess, shows how much they really care about the 6-man. I didn't even after yesterday, I didn't even remember that there was a 6-man tag title until this prelim happened. So really it was just a gauntlet match that they had. It was Bullet Club and Chaos. They started it out, and then Bullet Club was eliminated by Chaos. Suzuki-gun then eliminated a Chaos faction. An LIJ faction eliminated Chaos. LIJ, made up of Evil, Bushi, and Shingo Takagi, beat the champs who came out last of Makabe, Yano, and Taguchi, and become the new 6-man title holders. So we now have LIJ, Evil, Bushi, and Shingo Takagi are all carrying gold. And this actually kind of comes into play a little bit because there was speculation, will everybody in LIJ leave the Tokyo Dome with a belt? And right now we have 3 of them. They're walking away with the belt. Next up, the first match on the main card was once again the opener for the show was Liger's final match. So here we have it was just a tag team between Jushin Thunder Liger and I guess is Naoki Santo, and versus Hiromu Takahashi, the current junior heavyweight champion, and Ryu Lee, aka Dragon Lee. He had to change his name because CMLL doesn't want him using Dragon Lee. So Ryu, which just means dragon. So he's still technically Dragon Lee. Hiromu and Liger start off the match. When Hiromu tags out, he and Ryu Lee cut off Liger going back to make a tab. They double team a bit. They did a little bit of heel tactics here. Sano and Ryu have actually a pretty good exchange of strikes at one point. Hiromu Takahashi ends up pinning Liger after hitting a time bomb. So Hiromu picks up the win here. It was career match 3,551 for Liger, and that is his last match. After the match, Hiromu says to a laid-out Liger that Liger made the junior heavyweight division and that he will continue his legacy. Kind of a show of respect. After, Liger ends up grabbing the mic, says that Liger, the wrestler, was born in the Tokyo Dome, and that is where Liger, the wrestler, is going to be no more. So, and he thanks everybody, and that was it. Something I noticed right after this, it was in night 1 too, but I didn't notice it, or night 1 as well. I usually don't notice the ads that are on the mat, but did anybody else notice that Zima was being advertised? I know that was a huge flop in the US, but what most people don't know is that it's still being sold in Japan. And it makes sense that Zima is one of the sponsors because Coors owns Zima, and Coors has actually been a sponsor of New Japan for quite a while, like after the final match of the night. Sometimes when they go back to do interviews or press conference types things, some of the wrestlers, there'll be like a little tower of Coors beers, and they might crack open a beer or two and pass them out to their faction or anything like that. So I just thought it was an interesting thing that Zima is still being sold in Japan even after it flopped so hard in the US. Next up, we had Roppongi 3K versus El Phantasmo and Taiji Ishimori for the junior tag titles. And of course, this was because they had won the junior tag tournament. Roppongi 3K to make sure to attack before the bell and just to cut off any heel tactics from Taiji Ishimori and El Phantasmo. They end up doing a double flip dives to the outside. ELP and Ishimori do, of course, in this match, the most annoying thing that I find that they do, and the refs just let them do it. They rake the back of their opponent over and over right in front of the ref. The ref does like nothing about it. There's actually one, they're just like coming up with creative ways to do this. So I guess I can give him a little credit. El Phantasmo did a springboard backflip back rake. He was like in mid-air flipping over backwards when he raked the back of one of Roppongi 3K. I forget which one it was. And then, of course, they set them up in the Tree of Woe, and they're standing on their junk. Again, clear DQ right in front of the ref. Ref doesn't do anything. This is one of the most annoying things that they do, and I wish they would stop doing it, or the ref needs to get in there. They did it all throughout the tag league, the junior tag league tournament, and it was just so annoying because they did it in every single match, and the refs didn't do anything, and they're doing it again here. Obviously, they're just being super heels, but these are DQs, so freaking call them if they're going to be that way. Show tries to give ELP a bellied back suplex, but ELP grabs onto Ishimori's waist to try to add some weight and block, but Show gives them a suplex, both of them at the same time. Basically, ELP ended up giving Ishimori a belly to back suplex as well, while Show was giving him one. Show reverses a 3K into a destroyer on ELP, because Taiji Ishimori and ELP ended up going for the 3K, which is obviously Roppongi's move. ELP reverses a shock arrow into a Styles Clash and gets a 2 count on Show. Ishimori throws the belt into the ring for ELP. Rocky ends up grabbing it on the backswing. Then ELP kind of drops to his knees and like straight punches Show right in the nuts, which he was doing all throughout the junior tag league. But he hurt his hand really bad. Show was wearing a cup. Show and Yo hit 3K on Ishimori, sending him out of the ring. And then Show hit shock arrow Yo hits a dragon suplex, and then they hit a double stomp shock arrow. So very similar to the double stomp package pile driver that Penta and Phoenix use. So this is a double stomp shock arrow. They pick up the win, and Roppongi 3K is once again your junior heavyweight tag team champions. Overall, I thought this was a really good match. Really, there was only one false finish in this match, and this is the second match on the main card, so you don't want to go all out with the false finishes. So this was really good. Really, the Styles Clash was like the only major finishing move that was hit and kicked out of, and then they kind of went to the finish from there. So moving on, we had Sanada versus Zack Sabre Jr. Going into this match in singles competition, these two are 2-2 against each other. This is for the RevPro British Heavyweight Championship match. I love the matches between Sanada and Zack Sabre Jr. because Sanada can go and do all the crazy chain wrestling and exchange hold after hold, reverse out of stuff. They reverse each other's stuff constantly. So really, there's not a whole lot I could give as far as detail for this match, but it was a constant show of chain wrestling, switching from hold to hold. They did a spot, which I think they did in a previous match, where they would have the necktie, I guess you would call it, or the bow tie. I think that's what my mom used to call it when I was a kid. And then they'd like reverse each other into it again, and they'd stand behind and they're pulling their hands across their throat. They reverse that like 10 times to each other. They go through all these moves. I just love it. It's not a high impact match between Zack Sabre Jr. and Sanada, but they're always fun to watch. They're always fascinating because of all the slipping out of different holds and reversing different stuff. And after a dragon screw leg whip from Zack Sabre Jr., after a dragon screw on Zack Sabre Jr., he starts to favor his knee. There's a ton of more chain wrestling. They exchange holds and pins attempts, but ZSJ picks up the win with a bridge over cover, and that is how this match ends. Zack Sabre Jr. retains the RevPro British Heavyweight Championship. Again, I just love this match. Some people may find it a little bit boring, but I just find this particular match fascinating, and I've loved the matches that I've seen of them earlier. I believe they had one for the British Heavy. It might not have been for the championship, but I know they had one at the G1, and they had some other matches this year. Excellent matches. Next up, we have Juice Robinson versus Jon Moxley for the U.S. Championship. Jon Moxley had won the IWGP U.S. Heavyweight Championship from Lance Archer on night 1. So he's defending it here the following night against Juice Robinson, who was his original opponent when the typhoon came through and he had to forfeit the championship. And that's how Lance Archer picked it up, because he ended up fighting Juice Robinson for the title. First, what is up with Juice Robinson putting little puffballs and having a total like Fu Manchu mustache and wearing like a police hat? He basically looks like somebody from the Village People or a stripper. I can't really tell. I think Juice, after cutting the dreadlocks, I think Juice should have taken a more serious look. If he's going to cut the dreadlocks, he might as well completely change his look. And I think Juice has he has a lot of charisma, and he's a really good wrestler. I think if he kind of turns towards a more serious side, he'll definitely be able to get even farther in New Japan. or in the wrestling landscape in general. But I think this kind of act of being way over the top and just putting these little cheap poofy balls all over his hat doesn't convey seriousness. And I think that's what his character needs at this point so he can continue on. And I don't know, like I said, I don't know why he didn't do it when he cut the dreads. That would have been the most logical time to do it, to completely change the look right there, instead of just cutting his hair and sticking with what he has been doing. But it is what it is, I guess. Juice attacks before the bell, so similar to the Roppongi 3K, the tag team match. They fight on the outside a bit. Chairs get involved, and then they finally move into the ring. Moxley targets Juice's back since his back was attacked on the previous night during the heavyweight tag team championship match that Juice had with David Finlay against the Guerrillas of Destiny, so Juice is actually a tag champion now, the heavyweight tag champion. And Mox ended up going through the hardcore match last night as well. So both of them are coming into this match kind of damaged and banged up and whatnot. Mox eggs Juice into a striking exchange. Moxley hits him. Moxley just drops him, hits him with a running knee. Juice later comes back with a right hand and two left hands of God. But then Moxley ends up hitting Death Rider, and Moxley is now still, I guess not now, is still the U.S. champion. So I have no idea how long Moxley's deal is with New Japan. I figure the whole reason that they had this second match was for Moxley to drop the title, and then he would just kind of be exclusive to AEW after that. But I guess he still has a deal with New Japan because he is still the U.S. champion even after night 2. So very interesting. I did not expect him to walk out of WrestleKingdom nights 1 and 2 with the championship. So that throws a curveball into what I was thinking was happening. Anyways, after the match, Suzuki's music hits, and he comes down to the ring. He's takes off his training jacket and pants, and he's just wearing his trunks, his wrestling trunks. They start to brawl in the ring. Suzuki hits the Gotch pile driver on Moxley and lays him out and grabs the mic. And basically, to sum it up, what he says is that he is the king of wrestling and challenges Moxley to the title. So that is going to set up Moxley versus Suzuki in the future. And wow, I'm actually I didn't even know I wanted this match. I want to see this match. Suzuki versus Moxley. That is going to be awesome. And Suzuki was not I'm pretty sure he was not in the G1 this year. So that is why we did not see Moxley versus Suzuki. Or they could also have been in different blocks, but I'm pretty sure Suzuki was not in the G1 this year. Next up, we have Kenta versus Hirooki Goto for the Never Openweight Championship. Goto attacks before the bell. So really everybody's starting them. Everybody wants to get the matches started fast. He beats down Kenta with some strikes. Kenta turns it around and they fight to the outside for a bit. They really just beat the crap out of each other. They slapped each other so hard. They exchanged super heavy elbows. Like, this was a very, very hard hitting match. They just beat the ever-loving tar out of each other. Kenta ends up hitting the delayed drop kick in the corner, hits a penalty kick, then a psycho knee, only gets a 2 count. Goto blocks a GTS and drops Kenta with a headbutt. They exchange hard lariats, neither of them go down, and then then after a few strikes, Goto drops Kenta again for a 2 count. More and more strikes, just beating the crap out of each other, slaps and punches and forearms and chops. Goto hits the GTW and then hits a GTR and picks up the win. Your new champion, Hirooki Goto, for the never Openweight championship. So, yeah, this match you have to check out if you like guys just punching each other constantly. This is the match to go check out off of night 2. Next up, we have the losers match, which is actually a numbers 1 contenders match. So it's Jay White versus Kota Ibushi. Both of them lost their respective matches the previous night. Jay White to Naito and Ibushi to Okada. So they are fighting here, and I believe that is a number 1 contenders match. So the winner of this will get kind of the first shot at the winner of the dual championship match. Goto tries to create a distraction right off the bat, but it doesn't work. Kota gets in a bunch of strikes and pulls a standing moonsault. Kota gets knocked off the apron at one point. He crashes hard onto the top of the barricade. It looked pretty brutal. It looked like it really hurt. Jay White goes to the outside, runs Ibushi into the barricade. Some more slams Ibushi's throat onto the edge of the ring. Jay White does a lot of trash talking and swearing throughout this match, and saying that without a briefcase, people don't care about Ibushi anymore. Ibushi hits a half bastard driver, half tombstone. It looked pretty nasty. And then Ibushi goes into kind of like this violent fugue state that he's been going into. He did it the previous night as well, where he doesn't really feel pain, and he just knocks the crap out of Jay White with some forearms, and then he hits an insane clothesline, completely levels Jay White. White then uses the ref basically as a weapon. He pushes him into Ibushi for a quick distraction. White hits a flatliner and then a deadlift suplex. Both men are slow to get up at this point. White then is the first one up. He hits a brainbuster and then a Kiwi crusher for a 2 count. Ibushi eats a nasty Saito suplex, lands basically right on his head. Ibushi goes for a springboard Rana, but Jay White knocks his feet out from under him. White hits a Uranagi off the top rope for a 2 count. Hits a sleeper suplex. Ibushi lands he lands right on his head again. Ibushi takes way too many high-angled everything. It takes way too many bumps on his neck and head. He is going to be seriously injured one of these days. Ibushi has a burst of energy, hits a huge V-trigger. After both men get up, Ibushi hits a high-angle German suplex and then hits a Bomaye. White uses Ibushi basically as a weapon this time to take out the ref. Goto gets into the ring with a chair, hits him across his back. Kota just turns around. He is pissed. He goes back into the kind of the fugue state again, knocks out Goto. Kota hits a hard knee and then the last ride powerbomb, but there is no ref there to count. Kota goes to the outside, pushes the ref back into the ring. Jay White flattens out to avoid a Kamigoya, and then Kota pulls Jay White up by one arm. He hits a couple head kicks and then a heavy Kamigoye 1, 2, kick out. Jay White kicks out of the Kamigoye. Goto pulls the ref out. Sorry, that was totally wrong. 1, 2, Goto pulls the ref out. So Jay White did not kick out of the Kamigoye. I apologize. Goto gets into the ring with a pair of brass knuckles. Ibushi blocks his swing, but White ends up hitting Kota in the head with a chair, and then Goto hits him with the brass knuckles. Jay White hits a straight jacket, Bloody Sunday, but White is wobbly, but he still manages to hit a Blade Runner. Jay White picks up the win, so he will now be going on to face the winner of the dual championship match. After the match, White gives Ibushi another Blade Runner for good measure. And again, this is a really good match. I was a big fan of it. Obviously not as good as the matches from the previous night for either of these two. But again, really good match. Next up, we have a promo package or video package for Jericho versus Tanahashi. So when Jericho challenged Tanahashi, Jericho had a video of him beating up a bunch of what looked like Tanahashi fans, I guess you will. Well, here, Tanahashi has a band, and the lead singer looks just like Chris Jericho. He comes in, beats up the lead singer, who is dressed like Jericho, and then Tanahashi is actually dressed like Jericho as well. He's got the face paint, the hat, and then he's just playing with the band and singing, or he's kind of more like cutting a promo. He's not really singing. And then they play a clip of Jericho in front of his plane where he says he'll give Tanahashi a shot at the AEW championship if he wins their match in the Tokyo Dome. So we have Jericho comes out, and they are not playing Judas. They're playing substitute music, and they put up the little thing about rights in different countries. You figure Jericho has the rights to the song, so did he not give them clearance? Because in the past, they have used his song, but this year, for the last two matches that I think the last two matches he's had in Japan, they have played filler music. So I'm not sure what is up with that. I don't know why they wouldn't be able to get the clearance needed for using a song that was recorded by Chris Jericho himself. So I'm not sure what was up with that. But it was clearly not the music that was playing in the venue. Jericho wears the AEW World title to the ring. He ends up flipping off the entire crowd as Tanahashi is trying to hype the crowd at the beginning of this match. The crowd is clearly behind Tanahashi for this one. And they talk about the contrast of physiques on commentary. They're talking about how Tanahashi kind of put out a challenge to the locker room, like a bodybuilding competition to the locker room, so he could have some motivation to get in the best shape possible before the Tokyo Dome. Obviously, Chris Jericho has definitely bulked up this year and is not as chiseled really at all anymore. So there's a very big contrast in physiques here. One thing I also noticed in this match, Tanahashi did not have any tape or a compression sleeve on his arm that has been bothering him for quite a few years now. So I don't know if that means that he is now in the clear and his arm is back to at least a level that he would deem not an issue anymore, because he is not wearing compression sleeve, he's not wearing tape. And that's something that we've seen him wearing for a very long time now, for at least 3 years, as far as I can remember. The G1 for 2017, I believe he was wearing. I think it was right after like a major injury somewhere around there, and he was fighting hurt the whole time through that G1, or he injured himself right before a G1. I don't know if it was 2017 or 2018. Pretty sure it was 2017. Anyways, they also mentioned that the AEW roster is younger than Chris Jericho, and he's been exploiting it since he is a true vet. This is actually the first time since 2003 that Tanahashi has not wrestled on January 4th. January 4th is the customary date of WrestleKingdom, which night one was on January 4th this year. Tanahashi mocks Jericho by doing the foot on his chest pin while flexing, which was really funny. Classic Jericho in New Japan. He grabs a camera from one of the ringside photographers and takes a bunch of pictures, flipping off the crowd, kind of taking selfies and stuff like that. They fight on the outside. Jericho gives Tanahashi a spike DDT right on the English announce table, but it doesn't break. The tables that they use in Japan are pretty heavy duty. Like, the top is hollow, but they have quite a lot of steel support underneath, and it's not just like a flimsy piece of steel. It is like square stock steel. So it's not just like kind of a little bent over piece that you kind of see on the tables over here in the US for these types of tables, for the fold out tables. So he landed on it, but it did not break in half, but they did leave a pretty good dent through the hollow top. They mentioned that once the English commentary got resituated, they were off commentary for a while as all of their gear had been strewn about and they needed to get reconnected and all that fun stuff. Jericho does some mocking air guitar of his own to get back at Tanahashi. He ends up missing a high fly flow that he goes for. Tanahashi is smiling ear to ear like, Jericho's an idiot because he's doing the stupid, he just kind of looks dumb doing the air guitar, and then of course he misses the high fly flow. The crowd is actually laughing pretty good at this point. The crowd is constantly making noises and yelling this entire match. Jericho pulls Red Shoes into the corner and he gets splashed by Tanahashi. Jericho gives Tanahashi a low blow and then takes off his weight belt and starts whipping Tanahashi. Tanahashi gives Jericho a low blow of his own. And then the match at this point is kind of a bit of a reset. Tanahashi does a somersault senton for a 2 count. Jericho goes for a lion salt, but Tanahashi pushes him over the top rope to the floor. Tanahashi hits a high fly flow to the floor on a standing Jericho who is down on the floor. Jericho is made to answer a 20 count at this point, and Tanahashi hits a drop kick and 2 dragon screw leg whips when Jericho is still tied up on the ropes coming back into the ring. Tanahashi then goes for a high fly flow, but Jericho gets his knees up. Jericho goes for a lion salt, but jams his knee after the dragon screws. Tanahashi then blocks a Judas effect. Tanahashi hits a straight jacket suplex. Jericho gets the walls of Jericho onto Tanahashi. Tanahashi almost gets to the ropes, but Jericho pulls him back to the center of the ring. And then Tanahashi manages to kind of turn himself back over and flips Jericho out of the hold. And then he hits a sling blade. Tanahashi hits a modified GTR, or very similar to a GTR. Tanahashi goes for a high fly flow. Jericho ends up catching him with a code breaker. Tanahashi ends up kicking out at 2. Tanahashi then hits a code breaker of his own, so he's now hit a couple of repeat moves from Jericho, hitting him with a low blow and now hitting him with a code breaker. He gets a 2 count on Jericho, and then Tanahashi goes for another sling blade, but Jericho tries to apply the walls of Jericho. Tanahashi rolls that into a pin, hits a twist and shout, hits a sling blade, gets a 2 count, goes for the high fly flow again. Jericho catches him in midair, turns it into the lion tamer. Tanahashi is just trying to get out, but Jericho pulls it back even more. Then basically kind of like blocks his hand from being able to kind of curl through, and really, really drives his knee into the back, and Tanahashi taps out to Chris Jericho in the Tokyo Dome. I was not expecting this finish at all until Jericho got into like the really high angle lion tamer with his knee behind Tanahashi's neck. I did not see Jericho submitting Tanahashi. That just came out of nowhere. I figured he'd at least win with the Judas effect, but nope. He got him with the Lion Tamer. So Jericho seems to be using the Lion Tamer as his finish more than he has in the past, and he's trying to grow credibility back into the walls of Jericho, or the Lion Tamer, or whatever he wants to call it, versus having the Judas Effect as his only finisher, or the Code Breaker, because he hasn't put anybody away with the Code Breaker for quite some time. So having the submission move back being important and being something that people do tap out to. He did tap out somebody in AEW. I'm just spacing who it was. He had Jungle Boy in it, the Lion Tamer, for a very long time before hitting the 10-minute time limit. So he's definitely bringing credibility back to his finishing submission, which I think is a good way to go. Last up on the card, we have Tetsuya Naito versus Kazuchika Okada for the Intercontinental Championship and the Heavyweight Championship. So they are basically unifying the titles for a while here. There's a bit of feeling out at the beginning of this, bit of back and forth, until Naito hits this backbreaker to the floor from the apron on Okada. And then Okada hits the cradle, kind of that swing around cradle neck breaker that he likes to do. Okada signals for the Rainmaker pretty early, but Naito gives Okada a few back elbows to get out of it. Naito perches Okada up onto the top rope, gives him a Super Rana right before the 15-minute call, so they've been going for quite a while here. Naito goes for Gloria, but Okada fights out of it. Naito then gets a kick in on Okada, but Okada hits him with a huge shotgun drop kick. He flew back. Naito gets drop kicked off the top turnbuckle. He tumbles to the floor at one point. Okada then starts to attack the knee that Jay White had been targeting the previous night. Okada clears the Japanese announce desk, drops Naito knee first right onto the table. He lifts him up over the barrier, drops him on the table. Naito is made to answer a 20 count right at the 20-minute mark at this point. Right as he enters the ring, Okada hits a huge missile dropkick off the top rope. Okada misses a Rainmaker, and then Naito hits the swinging DDT that he likes to do. Hits a high-angle Gloria. And, oh my god, Naito hits a Super Rana, a Super Poison Rana off the top rope. Okada landed like right on his head, right off the top rope in a Poison Rana. It was insane. I said, just sitting here in my office, oh my god, because it was crazy. Okada fights out of a Destino attempt at one point. They, at one point, it looks like they're having a little bit of a conference, because they're kind of both bent over and they're kind of in like this weak collar and elbow tie-up. I believe they're having a little bit of conference with each other to figure out how they want to play the rest of it, calling some spots or anything like that, if they wanted to switch some stuff up or anything like that. Because it was a little bit of an extended time. Looked like they were talking to each other, which is perfectly fine. Had a little bit of a mini powwow right in the middle of the match about what's going to happen in the match. Naito hits a flying forearm. Okada then hits a massive drop kick when Naito tries to go for another one. Naito hits a Destino for a 2 count. The crowd is going wild at this point. Okada misses a Rainmaker but hits a drop kick. They're both slow to get up at this point, and then they have a striking exchange on their knees. The crowd is so loud for every strike that there's like a second of silence between the strikes. And the echo dissipates through the Tokyo Dome. It is crazy, and this happens over and over and over again. The entire crowd is just like yelling at every strike, and then there's like dead silence, and then a yell, and then dead silence, and then another strike and dead silence. It was awesome to listen to. Okada ends the exchange with a massive Rainmaker. He pulls up Naito. Naito attempts a Destino, but Okada grabs him, gives him a Tombstone, and then another Rainmaker. 1, 2, kick out. Naito kicks out of a Rainmaker. The place goes nuts. So now Okada's kicked out of a Destino. Naito has kicked out of the Rainmaker. Okada starts to thrash the knee some more. He is actually drawing boos from the crowd at this point because he just keeps going after the knee. Okada's like, screw it. He keeps working over the knee. He's just kind of being relentless on attacking Naito's knee. Naito hits a Destino, but jams his knee on the landing. He just takes too much time to get over to the pin, and Okada kicks out. So Okada is now kicked out of 2 Destinos. Naito goes to the top rope, hits a Stardust press. Okada kicks out. Naito hits a Destino and picks up the 3 count. Tetsuya Naito is the dual IWGP Heavyweight and Intercontinental Champion, holding both belts. And then it is not over. At the end of this, as Naito is giving his speech at the end of the show and kind of thanks everyone, and right when he's wrapping up, Kenta hits the ring, attacks Naito, gives him a go to sleep, and then sits on top of Naito's chest cross-legged, holding up both of the belts. He wants a shot at Naito, even though he had just lost the Never Openweight Championship a couple matches earlier. I'm wondering how he can justify that he deserves a title shot against Naito when he just lost the title that he was holding, but we will see how it comes. Overall, WrestleKingdom, again, did not disappoint. It was an excellent show, just like the past 3 years that I've been watching. Awesome, awesome show. So going into this, I am curious how they're going to be double booking this championship now that somebody is holding 2 of these titles. Are they going to do dual title matches? So both of the titles are up for grabs at the same match. So somebody else could possibly be a dual champion in the future. Are they going to schedule one title to defend at a time? I'm not sure. I believe what I've heard is that the first title defense is going to be a dual championship match. So we'll see how that comes. As far as Kota Ibushi goes, starting off the year with 2 big losses after winning the G1 last year. He had a really big year. So what are they going to do with Kota Ibushi this year? Given how things went down, I think that Ibushi could win the G1 again if he doesn't have the title or titles when the G1 starts. Something about this year, they have moved the schedule around a little bit. So the G1 is actually going to start in late September, and it's going to finish up around the 16th or 18th of October. So there's actually going to be a much smaller gap between the end of the G1 and WrestleKingdom versus when it usually ends in August. So instead of having basically September, October, November, December, so 4 months plus a couple weeks, usually maybe 1 or 2 weeks, they're only going to have about 2 months plus a week or 2. So we're talking about 2.5 months versus about 4.5 months. So how is that going to work out? Because usually the G1 sets up, it sets up a couple briefcase defenses, because usually the briefcase is defended if whoever wins the briefcase usually has a match for the briefcase against anybody that they lost against during the G1. Now there isn't going to be that much time. Also, the G1 matches set up title matches. So if you are the Intercontinental Champion during the G1 and you lose to somebody, they're going to get an IC match in the future at usually King of Pro Wrestling or one of the Destruction shows or Power Struggle. So I'm curious how they are going to make this work now with such short time between the end of the G1 and WrestleKingdom. I kind of liked how they did it, where there's actually 4.5 months between, instead of now they're only going to be having 2.5 months. And I think there's only usually like one big show kind of between the end of October and WrestleKingdom. You know, they kind of have a big-ish show. I guess there's a couple. They could move stuff around. I guess King of Pro Wrestling could be in there, and then maybe they'll move a Power Struggle over there. I'm not sure how they're going to do it, but they're definitely moving stuff around. Looks like the J Cup is going to be in March this year. The Super Juniors is going to be in June, which I believe it's usually a little earlier than that. The G1 is going to be in the fall. So I'm curious where they're going to put the Junior Tag Tournament, if they're going to have one, and World Tag League, again, if they're going to have one. Or are they now just going to go with the J Cup, the Super Junior Tournament, and then the G1? I mean, I like the tag tournaments. Though they aren't the biggest draws, especially compared. The G1 is definitely like their biggest tournament and their biggest drawing tournament. But the Super Juniors tournament has been excellent in the past couple of years. This year was amazing. I watched every single match from that tournament, and it was awesome, especially with Will Ospreay in there. And then this year we're gonna have Hiromu Takahashi is back. So he is going to be in the juniors, I'm assuming. So this should be a pretty awesome year, especially if we're going to have probably at least who's going to be in it. We're probably going to have at least Will Ospreay, Hiromu, Taiji Ishimori, El Phantasmo, Robbie Eagles. I mean, those are just the guys I can think of off the top of my head. Most likely you'll have Sho and Yo, and I believe Rocky is a junior heavyweight. So, I mean, this could be this next year's Super Juniors, Best of the Super Juniors tournament should probably be pretty freaking awesome. So I am really looking forward to it. But how this next coming year shakes out, especially I think they're probably after the Super Juniors, between the Super Juniors and the G1, I'm guessing they're coming to the US to do some shows. I haven't really looked at their full schedule, so I don't know how they're going to loop everything in. But I don't know if Junior Tag Tournament or the World Tag League is going to be able to fit in here, given how they've rearranged the J Cup, Super Juniors, and G1. So I guess we will see. All right, so I have not watched New Year's Dash yet, so I'm going to have to do that tomorrow. So I hopefully will get this up on a New Year's Dash episode up on Friday, maybe Saturday. Again, I'm really late on this one. I'm sorry. I had a migraine this weekend, and I just didn't want to record, and it's just how it is. So this is up on Thursday. Be sure to tune in. AEW Dynamite post show will be on Thursday at 8 o'clock Eastern, so you can tune into that live. Be sure to check that out. That's Wrestling over on YouTube. If you would like this as a podcast, you can find it on all your podcast platforms, or go to thatswrestling.com to pick up the RSS feed. If you're listening to this as podcast and you want to see it live and participate in the live chat or anything like that, head over to YouTube. Also, the link is in the show notes as well, and head over and subscribe to the That's Wrestling YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the bell so it notifies you when I'm going live, so you don't miss anything and you can participate. Also, again, I am looking for co-hosts of this show. If you are interested, shoot me an email, eric@thatswrestling.com. Also, if you want to send me a question, comment, feedback, mailbag, whatever you want to call it, eric@thatswrestling.com. You can also find me over on Twitter, That's Wrestling 1, with the number 1 at the end. So, beyond that, I think that's it for tonight. So, thanks for watching or listening, everybody, and I will see you next time on That's Wrestling. See you later, guys.